Our last question today is from George, and George asks, our ACO is preparing to report the APM Performance Pathway eCQMs. There are 9 different EHRs represented in our ACO. A string of missed deadlines and excuses makes me wonder if it can come together in time. Do you have any advice for us?
Great question, George. And a lot of our friends and clients are running into problems with this. I think the first thing to understand, many groups don't seem to realize that the APP, the APM Performance Pathway, can be satisfied either by eCQMs or by CQMs. eCQMs, of course, are the electronic clinical quality measures. Um, that are part of the certification pathway for EHRs and can either be provided by the EHR or by a third party working with one or more EHRs. CQMs, clinical quality measures, sometimes called MIPS CQMs, um, are a separate set of measures. Now, they often overlap. The same measures available as an eCQM or CQM, and all the APP measures do exist in both camps. And providing those measures to Medicare as a MIPS CQM is just as valid as the eCQMs and typically far easier to do. Um, eCQMs end up being an ONC certified process to get quality data out of EHRs, whether it's by the EHR or the third party. And the requirements are fairly stringent, and the limitations on EHRs to create them tend to be structurally difficult. Um, we're talking about a system, the MIPS or the QPP system, with rules that can change, turn on a dime, and EHRs, which are really stuck with processes that are hard to update with less than a 2-year runtime. And also EHRs who typically aren't rewarded for working well together. They do better if they try to isolate from each other, or they're inclined to do that and not play well together. And an eCQM process. So an eCQM process can be difficult and expensive to build, and it can, once it's working, it can be broken by adding new groups to your ACO who use a different EHR, or by someone in your ACO changing EHRs, or even changing versions. Upgrading the version can render the system unworkable. So there tends to be a lot of failure points. I tend to think of the eCQMs as an exclusive process. If you walk down that narrow road, hitting all the right boxes, you can get a successful submission. But lots of places it can fail, and the more complex it gets, the more failure points there are. Now, CQMs, on the other hand, also we've provided both eCQMs and CQMs. We rarely do anything with eCQMs these days because there's nothing you can do with eCQMs that you can't do better with CQMs. We have a lot of options. We can cast a broader net to pick up data the way you're recording it in your EMR, or even accommodate multiple workflows within your EMR, multiple EMRs. And we use processes that we've been using for the last 10 years that are tried and true. The way we do MIPS is perfectly applicable to the APP and works right out of the box without any extra development and virtually no implementation time. And I tend to think of the CQMs as an inclusive process. So as we add complexity on, each layer of complexity adds to the quality of your quality submission. It makes it more accurate. It makes it improves your score. So I urge you to give that CQMs a try. I suggest that you do it quickly. Not that you need much time to get our process up and running. Again, very little implementation time. You can usually work right out of the box. We've been working and producing analytics within 2 weeks of engagement at some time, sometimes. But if you need to prove to yourself that it's going to work, because if you're going to stick with eCQMs, you're going to need all the time between now and the 2025 final deadline to get it working and to work out all the kinks and deal with your first set of failures. But it would be nice to relax for the next few years by having a process that works, and by doing it right away, you start to enjoy the incentives that Medicare is building in for people who use the APP before the deadline. Hope that helps. Again, look to those CQMs, and thanks, George, for the great question.